Hello again, and welcome back to Mark Reviews. The subject of this upload is about tyres, and in particular, inflating your tyres. This is always a bit of a tiresome and fiddly job that no one really looks forward to. And I had an experience recently, which I'm showing you now, when I went to inflate my tyres, do a tyre check, which you're meant to do every 2 to 4 weeks. I normally do 4 to 8 weeks if I'm honest. And I went to several petrol places to check my tyres, and they were all out of order, and I'd wasted about 35 minutes of my time looking for a working tyre inflator. So I thought there must be a better way, and this brings me on to the subject of this video, which is the ring tyre inflator, which I researched and then purchased, and I think it's a really good gadget, number one, and this is a gadget review site overall. And I've used this, bought it with my money. Ring has no association with the Ring doorbell, by the way. It's the Anglo-French company who've been doing automotive accessories for a long while. And I researched, ordered this online, and like I said, I've been really impressed. So I thought I'd do a little review of it. There are various tyre inflators available on the market, but this is their latest model for Ring, and it's extremely powerful and extremely quick at inflating a tyre. It's won various car magazine rewards or highly recommended awards. So let's go ahead and have a look. So when you open the box, you're greeted by a rather nice case, and I have to say this is a squircle shape, so it's not quite a circle, not quite a square. And I put the measurements up on screen, so it's fairly compact. And then when you open it up, you're greeted by the actual tyre inflator. Fully fills the case, as you can see. You've got a large digital display, a yellow little knob there, which isn't actually a knob, it's actually a twisting dial, and then a button for some sort of light, and a big on-off switch, and a little shallow cavity there, which we'll come to later. So when you take it out of the case, I was expecting to have lots of attachments to attach, but you realise that that's an all-in-one kit, and they're very helpfully provided some disposable gloves, because obviously checking your tyres is a mucky business. And I think this is also a very nice touch, the fact that they've included 4 spare tyre valve caps and also a replacement fuse, which I think is also a very nice touch. Also within the case, you've got just some desiccant packs to keep moisture off, because you're going to keep this in your car or in the garage, for example. And just a very small leaflet, which is kind of picture heavy because it's pretty much idiot proof and self-explanatory how you use it. So you can put all that away, and now let's have a closer look at the actual tyre inflator. So when you look at this nice compact unit, it's nice and smooth, but still easy to hold. It's got some rubber feet underneath, so it's nice and stable when it's lying on the ground, and that's the LED light, which we'll look at later. You can just see some cables that are tucked away out of sight, which again we'll look at later when it's in use. And then underneath you can see the actual power cord, which fits into the 12-volt supply of any car. And then I thought this was quite interesting. These are essentially just some like a spare connector valve, but also a spare attachment to, for example, inflate a netball or football, and also a Presta valve if you want to inflate some bike tyres that come with Presta valves, but otherwise the standard fitting is a Schrader valve for most bikes, and that just clips in nicely on the back of the unit, completely out of the way. And now we're just going to pull this power cord out, and as you can see, it just turns the that base wheel. So rather like I suppose a vacuum cleaner plug, really. You can basically fold that cord back in after you've finished, and as I've said on the screen, it's a 3.5 meter power cable, so plenty of length there. And then after you've finished, obviously you can just use a little use that wheel again just to kind of retract it. There's a little fold out lever there that helps you fold back the cable. Fairly self-explanatory. I'll just do it quickly just to show. Goes in quite simply. I'm doing this obviously in front of the camera, so I'm holding it at an odd angle, but it is actually quite easy when you just have it gripped nicely in your hands, but I'm holding this out in front of me. And then if you move on to the side of the unit, you've got this nice braided, strong feeling air pressure hose with a really nice metal alloy cap there that fits over your tyre valve. And again, we'll look at that more closely in use, because I think that's really good. And that's literally a tyre deflator valve. So that's, if you want to release air pressure from the tyre, you can just press that to lower the tyre pressure. And that's the on-off switch for the LED lights. You've got the thumb wheel there to control units and the pressure reading, on-off switch. And that's about it. But it's all in one, nothing to fiddle around with or try and connect. So let's have a look in use. So the first thing is, whatever type of car you drive, whether it's a petrol or diesel car, or in this example, this is with an EV, you should always turn the car on fully, because this is quite a high drain unit. It will potentially flatten the battery if you have it in accessory mode. So I always recommend that you have the engine running if it's a petrol car, or like in an EV, it's fully on. And then you just take everything out, plug it in, and then you're kind of just going to show you how it goes. So like I said, there's a 3.5 metre power cord, so you've got plenty of length to do one side of the car. You would normally have or leave the door open. On the day I was doing this, it's absolutely freezing, and I was going to use the car soon after, so I just closed the door, which you're able to do. You unfold the air pressure hose, and now I'm just going to take off the tyre pressure valve from the tyre. And then you'll see what that little alcove was, which we looked at earlier, and I thought, again, that's a very nice touch, so there's no chance of you losing the tyre pressure valve. As you connect it up, you can just hear that little loss of pressure when you tighten the valve, but it's a nice consistent loss of pressure. One of the fiddly things with all tyre pressure type things at the petrol pump is that you end up losing pressure when you try and attach the air pressure hose, but because of that nice valve, you don't lose pressure. It's just a very tiny amount each time, and the same amount. And I've just taken a bit of air out using that tyre deflator valve. And here we go. Power, and it's very, very quick, and you have a progress bar, like a bar chart that just extends along, and when it's fully up, then you know it's done. And as you take off the valve, again, you just lose a tiny amount of pressure, but again, it's always a consistent amount, and that's always very good. On the box it says this machine does up to 100 psi, but on the machine itself they mention 80 psi or 5.5 bar. And it's worth mentioning, you can change the units on the display. You can have it in PSI, which I prefer, or bar or kilopascals. So now this is me doing the front tyre. Again, just a nice loss of a tiny amount of pressure from the tyre. And as you plug it in or screw it on, it just gives a tyre pressure reading, which is 35 at the moment. And then when you go to adjust it using the dial, you get a nice big display, and then the target is displayed at the bottom. And again, you just keep a look on the progress bar, and again, it just takes a few seconds, rather like at the petrol pump, and they're much bigger machines. And again, that nice little slight loss of pressure, and that means when I was doing the experimenting with this machine, I've used it on several cars now, I always have a target pressure of 0.5 more than I'm aiming for. This is just the LED lights. Obviously the unit would be on the floor sometimes by the tyre, but you can use this obviously to light the way if it's dark. And with the Ioniq 5 EV, because there's no central tunnel, I don't need to unplug anything. I can just thread the unit through to the other side of the car. Obviously with a normal car with a gear stick and things, you'll have to just put it over and stretch it over. It won't be so nice if it's raining and wet. Obviously with this car you can just slide everything through. And now I'm just showing the right rear tyre, and again just showing the display. So like I said, when you change to the tyre target pressure, the whole display changes to the target pressure, and the unit will turn off by itself. So what I'm demonstrating there is, obviously I've put a pressure in of 40.5, but I'm actually looking for a target pressure of 40 to allow for that little loss of air when I release the machine. And this is me just folding, retracting the power cord. It would be nice, like a vacuum cleaner, if you could just press a button and it would just come in, but I guess the unit would be a lot bigger and heavier to have that included. But it's fine just to retract it using the wheel. And then I'm just going to fold that actual tyre pressure part in, and it just folds in really nicely, really easily. And then it's all done. Voila. And just fold that little lever back in. Easy peasy. And here's me just putting the unit back into its case. It will be up to you where you keep it. I think this is so good that any time I'm going to go long distance anywhere, I tend to keep it in the car. But otherwise I'll just keep it home or keep it in the garage so I can check any of the cars. Yeah, that's my car, my wife's car as well. But here's the thing, proof of the pudding. After I inflated the tyres, I had a trip to London and using the tyre pressure sensors on the car, and this is exactly the target pressures I wanted. 37 at the front, 40 at the rear, and this just shows how accurate it is. When I read some of the reviews, there was mention that the 12-volt power cable wasn't fitting correctly in certain cars, but this is my little Volkswagen Up, and now, which was a 10-year-old car and obviously German, and this is my wife's French Peugeot E208, and the 12-volt of that adapter fits perfectly. So in all three cars we own, it fits perfectly, no problems at all. And there's even now, I have another aftermarket kind of rainproof adapter, and it fits perfectly well on that. And it's not just a snug fit, but it actually works. The unit works perfectly. I'm sure some of you may have mentioned, well, you have something similar included in most cars, and this is it in the Hyundai. But the thing I don't like about these little units is, number one, you have to kind of connect them up, and you've got one of those crummy analog dials that you can see, and those only give really a bit of an approximation of the tyre pressure when you inflate it. Also with a unit such as this, you can only look at the tyre pressure when it's not inflating. So when it's inflating, you then have to stop it to see where it is on the dial. And of course this also comes in a kit with this tyre gloop, which can on occasion ruin the tyre, and they're so fiddly to use and quite messy. It's always something you don't really want to use. So overall I've been really impressed with this ring tyre inflator. It's highly accurate, really easy to use, really easy to connect up, which is always the key thing, and it saves time. It saves a lot of time from taking the car to a petrol pump, and of course petrol pumps now charge. Okay, it's only 50p. This costs around £40, but it's well worth it. If you like the review, give me a thumbs up. If you really like it, then please subscribe.